Underground podcast, the most trusted podcast for all things California politics. I am your host, Phil, and as always, with me, my trusted co host, the best, the fastest researcher in the West, Camille. Now, with a new tagline, you have to take a really big breath to get through all of that in one single breath. I was like running out of breath. I was like, okay. How are you doing tonight, Camille?
I'm good. I'm good. The weather's good. But I have to tell you, I'm gonna actually check real quick. I know we're not like technically even near each other, but I think we're expecting rain next week. Oh yes, next Thursday, rain is expected. So
well, yeah, go ahead.
no, it's like we had Sunday. I want to say it was like 88 degrees. So I was in my temperature controlled air conditioned home. Today was like a low 70s, but I like that, it's getting dark later and my chickens are laying eggs because there's light longer and they're happy with the weather. Anyway, how are
Did you
you
enjoy
guys
that
being?
tweet I sent you about
Yes.
I forget which laboratory. This is what happens when you don't murder millions of
The
chickens.
eggs start
The price of eggs is dropped
hens
down.
start laying eggs when you don't murder chickens.
Yeah.
Amazing concept.
Pretty,
But now I don't
amazing.
actually sell my eggs anymore, but I'm thinking, oh, no more $10 dozen eggs from my organic backyard flock.
They'll have to move on to something else to complain about on the left about egg prices and stuff like
Well,
that. This is not really related to the episode tonight, but I did finally get some wall art. If you can see to my right, to people who are watching their left, if they can in the chat, there's only a little bit of you can see here. I'll tilt the camera just a little bit so you get if you can tell me what that is.
It's a guessing game, you guys.
You have to put your response in the chat. What is that wall art of? Because we were talking about it before we hopped on. All right, we have a lot to get to tonight. First off, we're going to be talking about Rosie O'Donnell was on a talk show in Ireland, which is where she has recently moved, engaging in full election denialism. Karen Bass, her solution to why she's $1 billion in the red is to go beg Sacramento for $2 billion. Newsom has launched his own satellite, or California's own satellite. It's not Newsom's satellite, but he used California money to launch a satellite to detect methane. I know it said fart detecting. We all know it's the joke of like cow farts are polluting or warming the globe. We went down the rabbit hole on that. A lot of money involved in that. And then finally, we're going to end on the fact that this poll came out, and even my parents noticed it all the way on the East Coast. They said, wow, 48% of likely California voters would consider voting for a Republican governor in the next election in 2026. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. But before we start, make sure if you're watching, you like, share, subscribe, review, comment. All that stuff helps with the algorithm. Are you ready to watch Rosie O'Donnell go full election denialism?
I am never ready to watch Rosie O'Donnell anything, so.
All right. Well, fair enough. The only time it's sad because I liked Rosie O'Donnell in a lot of things. A League of Their Own. Love that movie. Great baseball movie. She was a great character in that. Some great lines with her and Madonna. Both of them have kind of gone off the deep end when it comes to anti-Trumpism. But she's played a lot of good characters, and it's sad. Now she's gone, a little crazy, and she's off in Ireland. She finally moved. I give her credit. She was one of the only celebrities who said, I'm going to move, and she actually moved. Right? Like every election,
right.
They're like,
I know,
Trump
last
wins.
time this happened, we were like, why are y'all still here? Shouldn't you be gone?
Yeah, so. It's always all these celebrities are like, well, I'm going to move to Europe, or I'm going to move here, I'm going to move there. I give her credit. She actually got up and moved. So good for her. I think it was Ellen DeGeneres left before Trump got elected, but I think that had something else to do with like P. Diddy and why she was running away from that. But all right, we got to start with our stinger before our cringe moment of the week. So as always.
So I was willing to give up whatever might be the tracking of Kamala Harris's particular fondness for nacho cheese Doritos for the sake of getting a big bag of Doritos as I watched the Oscars.
Yep. Got to get those Doritos.
You know, a lot of people did vote for him.
Yes.
Do you accept their right to do that and their opinion of him?
Well, I respect their right to do that. I question why the first time in American history a president has won every swing state and is also best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet. So I would hope that that would be investigated.
His best friend is Al Gore.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if Al Gore had anything to say about this.
I thought Al Gore started and created the internet, right?
Right. He is the father of the internet. And I had no idea that Al Gore and Trump were besties, but you learn something new every day.
Yeah, strange bedfellows.
And that we would see whether or not it was an anomaly or something else that happened on election night in America when Kamala Harris was filling up stadiums with people who supported her. And Donald Trump was not able to do that. So it's curious to me. And as an American and a believer in democracy, I would hope that we would be able to look at all of the reasons why this happened in our country.
All the reasons.
Is it her country anymore if she moved?
Well, she's not officially, I don't think she's Irish yet. I don't think she's officially a citizen yet. You have to go through, there's a process over in the UK that you have to go through to become a citizen. But I guess it's still technically her country until she becomes a UK citizen. Now, does she plan to stay there just for the duration of Trump's presidency, or is she going to come back, or is she like permanently she's out? She's like, I've given up on America. That would be interesting to see if she does come back after a certain amount of time. I don't know why it's so shocking to her that, well, I shouldn't say I don't know why. A lot of people were in this bubble, and we saw reactions from everybody on the left that they were shocked that Trump did so well in this election. But if you were really like reading the tea leaves and you were looking at the polls and you were looking at the support, I don't think people who were in the know were that shocked that Trump won. I think they were maybe a little bit more shocked that he won by so much. I think that clip of them on CNN looking at all the counties of like Joe Biden won and Kamala didn't do better in one single county in the entire country probably gave you an idea. Who cares if she filled up stadiums? At the end of the day, like, you can fill up a stadium of 20,000 people. You still got to get people in the state to vote. And Trump still won all those states, and he won every single swing state. Why is that suspicious to her if a more popular candidate beat an unpopular candidate and won every swing state? It's happened before. I don't know, like back in the day when Reagan won, like how many states? 48 states. Like, it's happened before. It's not cause for like, big election denialism and conspiracy theories.
Well, I didn't know that we were allowed to do that. I thought that was like very tinfoil hat to even utter the words election denialism. I don't know.
Right. I was told that election denialism is like akin to being an insurrectionist, and therefore you're a traitor to your country if you're an insurrectionist. That's what I was told, but this was just 4 short years ago that I was told if you had any questions about elections and the security of elections and question their results, you were an insurrectionist and you should be, thrown in federal jail forever.
Hashtag never forget. I know it was rumored, and I don't know, I was never at a Kamala Harris event, but it was rumored that people were paid to go. It was rumored that the stadiums weren't full, and that they were, doctoring images. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But we've talked about this before because we were actually at an event that Trump was at, and we talked about and again, this isn't something like, I don't use these words to describe like, oh, you could feel the energy. Oh, but you could feel the energy. And we talked about like, I have photos of some woman was there who her thumbnails were painted with like Trump's picture on her thumbnails. Then there, as you know, that Trump was really late to that event, like an hour and a half late. And instead of people getting mad, they just start doing like Trump chants and dancing around the room and showing off their gear. And we didn't see any of that for Biden, and certainly not for Kamala. There was all the, oh, finally we can elect a woman president, like as if this was the first time a female had ever run. But yeah, there just wasn't, you didn't see those things in support of Biden or Harris. And so I don't know, people were shocked. Again, I didn't think it was going to be this close either, but through paying attention to politics, it was pretty clear America was getting fed up. People were mad. And a lot of my left-leaning friends were even like, nope, I'm not voting for him or her. It's going to have to be Trump. So
yeah, it's well, we make a little jab at her every single time we do our cringe moment when we do little sound clips of Kamala, and I think that definitely reverberated. There's a whole issue of she was paying a lot of these performers to show up, which got people to show up. So like Beyonce
true.
stadiums, like, yeah, okay, she filled up a stadium because Beyonce was there, and then people
Right.
were pissed
Beyonce
because
can
they
fill a
showed
stadium.
up. Beyonce can fill a stadium, and then they were pissed because they thought Beyonce was going to put on a concert, and like they were at a Beyonce concert with like a Kamala like introduction. But that's not what happened at all. Instead, it was just Beyonce came out and read like something that was scripted for her, and she was paid, and then she left, and that's how you fill a stadium on that. But Trump didn't need to do that. He didn't need to use a lot of stars or Beyonce or anything like that to fill stadiums. But regardless, the whole filling stadiums thing is it's such a weird thing to use as like a measurement now. It's kind of like what's going on with Bernie and AOC, where they're like, "Whoa, look at them! They showed up and there were 20,000 people in deep blue Colorado. Like the fire is real, the passion is real." It's like, okay, well, first off, you're in Colorado, you're in Denver, like these are very deep blue areas. Bernie and AOC showing up in those areas is gonna draw a crowd. I mean, make them go to, I don't know, what's a really conservative city in the middle of like Texas or something. Make them go to Oklahoma or something and see if they draw 20 or 30,000 people. We'll see how well that does.
Does Oklahoma have that many people? No, I'm just kidding.
Might be the whole state. 30,000 people would be the entire state of Oklahoma. Yeah, it's hard to tell whether or not people showing up means does it translate into people voting? I mean, yeah, obviously, if you show up and a lot of people show up, that shows excitement. I don't think it equates to whether you're going to win a swing state or not. That's more like the polls and the ground game. But whatever. That's Rosie's prerogative. She moved to Ireland and now she's questioning the election, which is, I laugh every single time that I hear people on the left questioning the election and saying, Elon Musk stole it and his supercomputers and his Tesla humanoid robots are taking over the world. I'm like, okay, 4 years ago, if we had been saying this, you would have said we're election deniers, and that's the end of it, and we should all be thrown in jail. So, any final thoughts on Rosie O'Donnell out in Ireland questioning the election?
I hope she thrives.
Yeah, Ireland, I hear, is a very beautiful country. So, take some time, get some rest, have a good pint of Guinness and some Irish whiskey, and just chillax for a little bit until maybe you get into a right headspace. Anyway, all right. This next thing is kind of harkening back to the last episode we just did prior to this, episode 307, where we were talking about how Los Angeles is facing $1 billion deficit. It started off as $300 million, which was bad enough, and now it's ballooned to $1 billion. And we talked about how extensive that is, why it is, what they're paying out, their bare bones budget, which is 12.8 as opposed to $13 billion, which I won't get into that. Why I think you might be crazy if you think that's bare bones. That's not close to bare bones. And we kind of ended the show, but like, well, they got to figure it out. They got to start cutting. They got to start figuring out how to save money. The parking tickets, which you brought up about them trying to collect on parking tickets, which they actually ended up spending more money. Only the government could figure out how to spend more money than trying to collect money that's owed to them. But Karen Bass has a solution. And it's a solution that, most Democrats, when they run out of ideas, or statists or leftists, I'm going to lump them all together. When they can't raise taxes, what do? They go and they beg for a bailout. So Karen Bass was spotted in Sacramento. Our favorite reporter, Ashley Zavala, caught up with her in the Capitol and said, "What are you doing here? And are you asking for help?" So we'll take a look at that.
State right now is dealing with a really uncertain budget situation in terms of its Medicaid funds, in terms of what federal funding looks like in the future. Tax returns in your district are delayed until October. So lawmakers are going to have to formulate a budget plan that they don't really even know how much money they're working with. So just what's your message to California taxpayers and other parts of the state who sort of see these challenges ahead for the state while you yourself have your challenges?
Right. And we are fortunate to have the state legislature and governor that we do. And we are concerned because we don't know what awaits us from Washington, D.C. But the state will have a better sense of the finances after April 15th when taxes are due. The May revise when the budget is updated based on the tax returns will give us a better idea. But that's why we're here now, because the subcommittees in the Assembly and in the Senate that decide the budget that the governor put forward are meeting right now. So we want to make sure that LA City is included in that. We've been working lockstep with the county. The county was here last week, so we wanted to make sure that our voices were heard as well, which is why we're here today.
So basically, she is begging for money from Sacramento. The number I heard she's asking for is around $2 billion, which is more than the deficit that she currently has with her budget. Obviously, some of that probably has to go with the wildfires. I think it's interesting how she said, we're fortunate enough that we have the governor and the legislature we do, meaning we have a supermajority, and who's going to tell us no, because we run the entire state, and who's going to push back on this? I'm just going to show up and ask for whatever I want and hopefully get it, because we're all Democrats and we're all on the same team here. There was another thing that I wanted to bring up, and now it's escaping me about do you have any thoughts while I try to collect my thought on what I was about to say?
Well, yeah, you said, and it was on the screen there, that she's asking for approximately $1.9 billion. So, okay, rounding $2 billion. And we know that the deficit is just under $1 billion. And so I'm wondering if there's more coming down that we haven't heard about, that this deficit is maybe way bigger than what's even known yet. And yes, okay, there is the wildfire situation. I get that. But yeah, I'm wondering if slowly but surely things are going to come out that their deficit is actually closer to 2 billion. And
yeah,
only time will tell with that. But that is curious to me that she's asking for double the number, because as I discussed last week or a few days ago, whatever, I can't even comprehend the number 1 billion. That number just, I just don't understand it. And so when you double 1 billion to 2 billion, I'm like, this is not 1 million to 2 million. This is again billions. So that just escapes me. And so I don't understand how anyone and she's standing there just being like, luckily we have, the governor and the legislator that we do. She should freaking have her tail between her legs and her head down in shame. There should be some serious remorse and shame and embarrassment that she's even asking for any money at all, but billions.
Mm-hmm. I remember the point I was going to make. So we had discussed on the previous episode about this $1 billion deficit was due to the budget that they had voted in for 2024 and 2025. So this budget was voted in prior to the wildfires.
True.
So this $1 billion deficit has quite literally nothing to do with the wildfires. This is incompetence. This is not, oh, the wildfires set us back and that's why we're $1 billion, short on our budget. It's no, you passed this budget, tax revenues didn't match up, and now you're $1 billion in the red. And I think we even talked about how they knew this was going to be an issue, this budget that they passed prior to the wildfires. So a lot of repairs and stuff we're seeing, damage control or damage cleanup, has a lot to do with the federal government. FEMA's there, they're on the ground, so they're spending federal money. The EPA is there as well, also federal money. So there's a lot of federal money pouring into rebuilding or getting LA back on its feet. So asking for 2 billion, and you make an excellent point. Why is she asking for 2 billion? What's the extra billion for? If your budget deficit's only $1 billion, where's the other billion? I mean, we're just throwing
only a
out
billion.
numbers. Yeah, it's just we're just throwing out numbers now. Yeah, you know what? Don't worry. It's $1 billion, it's 2 billion, who cares? Whatever. We got the money.
Sorry,
In
Dan, I bought a
California,
country. We're $1 billion in debt now.
it's like, California's not doing so hot either when it comes to the budget, because now they got to dish out money for the wildfires. Tax revenues are down for them as well. There's a lot of things going on for California that they're not exactly, now they're borrowing money to pay for Medi-Cal, to just for the bills for this month, to cover everybody under Medi-Cal, and that includes all undocumented citizens here in California. So there's a lot of money going out of the treasury in the state, and asking, just sauntering up to Sacramento and going, oh, can you give us $2 billion, is like, it's just outrageous. It's okay. You got caught with a budget deficit. You have no other solution to figure it out, but please just bail us out. And like she said, I don't know what's coming out of DC. I can tell you right now, nothing's coming out of DC. DC is not going to bail out Los Angeles. So, yeah. Any other thoughts?
Have they tried switching to Geico to save 50% or more?
I don't know. They probably should. Well, Geico left the state because of the insurance rates. They couldn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't
Geico's no
mean to
longer
sound
needed.
condescending to anybody listening, but just in case anybody doesn't know, the budget, how it works, it's not like January 1st to December 31st. So as we talk about this budget that was passed, it resets July 1st. So this current budget is 24 to 25 until June 30th of 2025, and then July 1st. So that's why now they're working on the 2025 to 2026 budget, and they are already, this huge deficit for the 24 to 25. So just wanted to clarify that in case anyone didn't know that. Again, I don't mean to sound condescending. I just wanted that to all add up.
No, that's an excellent point. So it seems weird, like 2024, they're not doing 2 years at a time. It's the fact that their fiscal year covers 24 and 25. So it's the
Right.
rest of 24 and 25. And they knew that this was going to be a problem back then. And long before the wildfires came along, and there's still $1 billion in the red. So,
Right. So they're like trying to figure out how to cover this budget, which is now 3 months away from starting the next budget, and there's no money.
Oh, so it's a good evening, blessings from Mount Shasta. Hey, what's up, the postman? Yeah, if you guys have some questions or comments, make sure you put them in the chat. That's why we do this live stream every Tuesday, so people can give us their thoughts and their comments and their questions. I'm
Has
wondering
anyone
now.
guessed your art? Like,
No one has guessed my
this is a
art.
very important topic that we're gonna, have to kind of like. So let's throw out a hint.
It's related to music. If
Ooh,
that helps.
okay.
I don't want to give it all away, but another thought that just came into my mind is, if she's running to Sacramento asking for $2 billion, what's stopping like Daniel Lurie from showing up in Sacramento going, hey,
Yeah, no,
if
absolutely.
and then we're bailing out every city in California because they're all in the red. Like then
Mhm.
Todd Gloria shows up and he's asking for $1 billion, because why not? If we're handing out money, just keep handing it out. Yo, what's up from Forestville, California? How's it going? Yeah, I'll mayors will be lining up if that's the case. They can go
Absolutely. And I
just
don't blame
keep
them.
asking for
Like, well, hey, we want our share. Hey, we got problems here too.
They're like, I didn't know this was an option. I thought we had to like make hard choices and like balance our budget and like cut services and stuff like that. I thought we had to actually like do work. I didn't know we could just walk to Sacramento and like, I don't know, like get bailed out. What's up, Amy from Bakersfield, California?
I just want to add, and I keep saying this, I like probably almost every podcast I say this, but if one city, we have 58 counties, I don't know how many cities, 400 something cities in the state of California. If one city is asking for $2 billion and they're facing, what was it, 750 possible layoffs, maybe I just made that number up, or maybe I read it elsewhere, I don't know. They're trying to like They want to avoid layoffs, of course, but they're looking at having to do a bunch of layoffs. They're asking for $2 billion. This should tell you our government is too big. Our government can't even handle itself. And so I'm for the layoffs, not because I want people to lose their jobs, but government is too freaking big. And $2 billion is way too much money. One city. It's got to stop. It's got to end. This is crazy. This is madness.
Yeah. I you know me, I completely agree. If you're $1 billion in the red and you need to make some harsh decisions and figure this out, get to cutting, because obviously whatever you've proposed and all the promises you've made, you can't keep up with. So slash and burn, time to start slashing and burning. So on to our next topic, which I found really fascinating. This happened last week. Gavin Newsom doing his best Elon Musk impersonation by trying to launch stuff into space, decided he was going to have California launch satellites. Well, actually, it's only one satellite as of right now. They have plans for more. A satellite into space to detect methane. That's right, methane. And that's why the title of today's episode is Fart Detecting Satellites, because yes, cow farts are part of methane, but they have to also do with landfills and stuff like that. It costs the state, well, let me read the press release first. And I'm going to actually bring this up on, I'm actually going to bring this up so people can see it as well, because I figure, you know what, people want to see this as well. So this is his press release from his office. As U.S. EPA rolls back protection, California launches a satellite project to detect and reduce dangerous methane leaks. It is first action since being named co-chair of the sub-national climate coalition America is All In. Governor Gavin Newsom today announced a groundbreaking state effort to cut methane pollution with the help of innovative satellite technology. The new initiative comes as the Trump administration's EPA works to dismantle decades of clean air and clean water protections. Specifically, the U.S. EPA is reconsidering the endangerment finding, which is the basis for federal actions to curb planet warming emissions of greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, methane. He goes on to say, decades of progress to protect public health is on the line as the Trump administration works to roll back critical environmental protections. California isn't having it, thanks to our state investment. And we'll get to that in a little bit. We're using satellite technology to detect methane leaks as they happen. With this new data, we'll be able to move faster to cut harmful methane pollution, protecting Californians and the clean air we fought so hard for. And he got this nice stock image of a satellite. I don't think that's the actual satellite. It's a nice stock image of it. And I guess this is an image of what methane looks like from space. So it was made possible by a $100 million investment from the state's cap and trade program. Already one satellite has been launched with up to 7 more to be deployed. And this is from the California Air Resources Board. Chair Leanne Randolph said, this satellite project to monitor methane is unique for a state effort that will help us better identify sources of pollution Californians are already seeing and feeling the intensifying impacts from firsthand. Are you suffering from any methane problems or impacts from methane emissions in Orange County?
Maybe I just don't know. Maybe I could be so much better if I wasn't, and I have no idea that I'm literally not operating on my best. Can you go back to that article? Are you able to bring it up again real fast?
Yeah, I can do that.
Is this an article or is this a press release on like California website where you probably said and I ignored you? Where is this from?
This is directly from his office. So this is from the governor's website.
All right. Can you
this
scroll
March
down?
21st, 2025. Yeah.
All right. Brand new. Okay. Scroll. There's towards the bottom here, it says something in 2023. The last paragraph, what happened in 2023?
In 2023, California launched a new pledge for governments around the world to commit to cutting global methane emissions, one of the worst pollutants. The pledge is aimed at subnational governments like California and builds on the global methane pledge that focuses on countries.
Okay. Question, and maybe you're going to get into this because this is just something I just thought of. The first satellite we know is up. He has plans for 7 more. Do you know when that first satellite allegedly was launched?
It doesn't say when it was launched. I thought it was recently.
I thought I read 2024. I have a reason for caring about this. I do. But my
Okay.
point will not be valid if it was launched this year. What was the name of that satellite? I might have it. Hold on. Give me a second. I have so many tabs open as always.
Yeah, there's a lot to this one, so people
You can
like
keep
we
talking.
went
I'll
down
try
the
to
rabbit
find
hole.
out the answer to this. Because again,
Sure.
I have a point if I find out the answer.
So I wanted to bring this up because Gavin Newsom wanted to brag about like how, this is thanks to the $100 million investment from California. Now I'm bringing this up because you can look this up and this is fun to look at if you like looking at numbers and stuff. This is a award from the federal government to Caltech, California Institute of Technology. So Caltech receives a ton of money from the federal government. So if your first question is, well, are our tax dollars paying for Gavin Newsom's satellite to go up in the air? Maybe in a roundabout way, because the cap and trade investment, I believe, is you buy. Remember, cap and trade was a big thing like 20 years ago. Now, people don't talk about it
And
anymore.
that whole thing confuses me. I'm gonna have to like really do in-depth reading to understand that program.
If people can just, I think I remember, if people want to correct me in the chat, I remember it's like you can pollute up to a certain amount, and then like after that cap, you can buy like somebody else's pollution allotment. Like, so if factory A has a cap and they go over the cap, but factory B is under the cap, you can buy like their unused cap. Like, I think that's what cap and trade is. So they like pay each other and then you pay the state for it or something like that. So it was $100 million, drop in the bucket compared to the billions of dollars that Caltech gets from our government for a lot of NASA research. So yes, NASA is still around, even though SpaceX is primarily doing all of our space exploration and actually going to space. NASA still spends a ton of money and gives it to Caltech. So down here it says it gives it to California Institute of Technology, a private nonprofit educational institution which establishes the relationship for the operation of federally funded research. Blah blah blah. It's known as Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The contractor, JPL, is required to perform work that is designated in task orders issued by the NASA Management Office. So, and now if you look down, here's all the stuff, the 4 broad scientific areas that are uh, Earth science, planetary science, heliophysics, and astrophysics and performance. It goes on to talk about Shaw broad base of scientific technical capabilities relevant to NASA program. I mean, you can read it. It just keeps going on and on and on. And it kind of gets this like, if you know anything about federal regulations, they write these things with enough wiggle room that you get these grants, and it gives you enough wiggle room where you can sort of just start using it as you see fit. Um, Now, am I saying that the money for this satellite came from this to almost $3 billion? We still have to do some more research to see if that's true. But what I'm doing is I'm setting up here sort of how much money funnels into California and Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And that's important because Jet Propulsion Laboratory, everyone stay with me. If I'm going too fast, raise your hand. Everyone can just let me know. So this is another article that I found, and that's why I think it's important that I bring all this stuff up and just not just read it. So this was from Space News. In San Francisco, Planet announced a $20 million agreement to provide hyperspectral data for Carbon Mapper's greenhouse gas monitoring campaign. The deal, which extends from 2026 to 2030, will help Carbon Mapper deliver high-resolution methane and CO2 super emitter data to decision makers around the globe. Riley Duran said in a statement, he's the CEO. In particular, this agreement lays the groundwork for further expansion of the constellation of Tanager satellites and the extension of Carbon Mapper's mission to make methane and CO2 visible in transparent fashion through our public data portal. So they're one company. So you have Carbon Mapper is one.
They're a nonprofit.
They're a nonprofit. You have Planet, which is a private or publicly owned. It's got shares. It is a private enterprise. And then you have the Carbon Mapper Consortium was unveiled in 2021 by the state of California, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and Planet. The contract announced March 28th is an extension to an existing data license agreement between Planet and Carbon Mapper. According to the news release, funding for the agreement was provided by a major climate philanthropy. Why can't I say that?
That's a hard word.
Philanthropy, the release added. Now, what that is, we haven't quite found that out because as of last year on their tax filings, Carbon Mapper only brought in $17 million in revenue. So where they're getting this extra money is kind of interesting to me. Also, Planet reported a net loss of $9 million for the quarter in earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. So they haven't, as of the last quarter, they have not made a profit. Anyway. And their earnings were up to $221 million. So why am I bringing this all up is because it does kind of create this web. The federal government gives Caltech $3 billion. And this was in 2018. So they gave them this grant and award. And this is only one. If you go on usaspending.gov, you can see the amount of contracts they have. This is the largest one. That's $3 billion. But there's others that are worth billions, hundreds of millions of dollars, all going to Caltech. I set the date parameters from 2018 until today. This big $3 billion contract starts in 2018 and still has like 3 years left. So they still have a little bit more of that $3 billion. What happens after that? Who knows? Do they get another $3 billion? But the point is, a ton of federal money is coming into Caltech for these ominous kind of projects that are pseudo space, are also pseudo climate change. They're also pseudo global warming. They're also pseudo like examining the earth and stuff like that. If you look at these project descriptions, they're all kind of very pseudo. This is what's going on here. And then Caltech, which partners with Jet Propulsion Laboratories, then works with these organizations like Planet and Carbon Mapper, and then they give them contracts and they get more money. And then at the end, Gavin Newsom comes in and takes $100 million from our cap and trade program, throws it at the program, gets to pat himself on the back and say, look, we launched a satellite. I'm such an amazing person. When in reality, it was mostly the federal government who ended up paying for this satellite that California is now putting up by themselves. And I put that in quotes, by themselves, when in reality, it's mostly the federal government. Okay. Did I lose anybody?
I'm still here. That was a lot.
That was a lot.
But I kind of mentioned this to you earlier too, though, where it does feel like with the insulin thing, and that what is the name of that company, Civica or something like that? Where
Civica,
they're already
a year before,
right? Like they were already working on creating the insulin, and then Gavin's like throws 100 million at it. Seems to be his lucky number. And he's like, oh, look what we're doing. We're leading the way. California's leading the way. And then this, it feels like it kind of happened and he attaches himself to it. So I found the date that Tanager, is that what it's called? Satellite?
The Tanager satellite, yeah.
The Tanager 1 was launched October 16th, 2024. Now, the reason why that is important to me is because Gavin put out this press release today, yesterday, a few days ago, this week, saying to fight Trump's policies.
Mm-hmm.
But yet this satellite launched before we elected Trump as president. So
yeah, right.
So he's just running his mouth again. It's really nothing deep. I'm just saying Gavin Newsom is full of methane.
Malarkey. We try to keep it a clean podcast. No, it's an excellent point that he's saying, and he only joined this America All In coalition
Last
which
week
I
or
was
whatever.
researching. It was like 4 days ago, and he's like a co-chair of it now. And I was looking at like what America All In is. Let me see if I can pull this up.
It
because I
doesn't
thought
seem to
this,
be a nonprofit. It's just more like a
it's not a
group
nonprofit.
project of like, we care.
Because I looked at a lot of like, I looked at Open Secrets, I looked at ProPublica. These are sites that we use when we're researching this stuff. Open Secrets, Follow the Money, all that stuff. ProPublica. I want to show this because you can get an idea of like who this company is based on who is a part of this coalition. So there's our esteemed governor right there, joins America All In as newest co-chair. That was a couple days ago, 4 days ago. Yep. I'm trying to see who they partnered with. I think it's with About Who We Are. Learn about the coalition. Is a joint declaration of support for climate action signed by CEOs, mayors. So it's kind of like, it's not really, what is that thing that was in COVID that wasn't the Behringer Declaration or something? The Great Behringer Deck. Someone in the chat can let me know. It was like
I don't know.
It was like hundreds of scientists who came out against the vaccine, and they called it the Great. I keep thinking it was like the Barrington. It's not the Barrington Reef or something like that. I try to block a lot of that stuff out. So here's the co-chairs. Right? Gavin Newsom, Gina McCarthy, J.B. Pritzker, and the mayor of Cleveland. They are co-chairs of this.
So what this feels like is when groups or a person endorse a candidate, but it doesn't mean anything. And this just feels like it's like we're all endorsing climate change.
There's like no skin in the game at all to do this. It's literally just like a feel good, like all these groups like Bloomberg that's that damn word again. Philanthropies. There we go. I swear. I did not start
that one is that one philanthropies, but I don't know
what
philanthropies.
Philanthropies. Feels like that episode from Friends where Chandler pointed out to Joey, there's no B in supposedly. And he sits there and goes, supposedly. That one drives me
a moo point.
It's a moo point. Yeah. It's like a cow. It's moo. No one cares. So here's some other groups. Climate Mayors, the National Congress of American Indians, Environment and Culture Partners. So you can sort of get the idea of like who supports this and who's behind it. WWF. But that's the coalition.
Wait, I'm sorry. This is not the point of it. Please go to the success stories. I would like to hear about their success. I need to know now.
Erie Fire Station goes 100% solar. Okay.
These are some major success stories.
This was 2 years ago. Erie, Pennsylvania wants to see the effects of anthropogenic climate change. They could just look out the window this past February. Erie is the 4th fastest warming city in America. Blah, blah, blah. I can tell you one reason it's so excited. Reopened with a new set of solar panels and a backup battery system. Good for them.
Yay.
What happens with those solar panels? They never want to answer that.
Whatever the batteries came from. Do you think they came from China? I bet they came from China.
Someone's helping me. Philanthro. I can't.
We're learning how to speak English tonight.
We're all trying to now. I think I've gotten in everyone's head. Now everyone's like, wait a second. How do you say this word? And still no one's guessed what the art is, the new art on my wall.
Just kidding.
Well, if they can see it, it's right there. Just tell me what that is. I don't know what prize you'll get. But yeah. Pronounce philanthropy. Got it. Okay. There was one more. I'll let you say, you have any more thoughts about this while I collect my thoughts for this next point? Because there was something else I wanted to bring up. Or are you just like,
well,
nah,
I would like to
this is
point
crazy.
out that to launch a satellite, it requires rocket fuel, and that is bad for the environment. Maybe I already said that. I know I said it to you. I don't know if I said it on here. So to track methane, we are polluting the environment.
Right.
Love
Yeah,
it.
we were
I love
talking.
it. To collect 100 million in parking tickets, we spend 160 million. To track methane, we add methane.
It's
I'm baffled.
yeah, and I'd found this. This is from the International Association of Fire and Rescue Services. Because if we're so worried about CO2 and what's being released into the atmosphere, how much do forest fires contribute to CO2 emissions? It can range from 5% to almost 300 times that of all fossil fuels burned. So keep that in mind
Do
when
you want
you're
to know
thinking
something
about.
interesting? I I I grokked. I don't know. Someone else tell
You
us how to
grok.
say that. Okay, so I used Grok, which is
What's
the
the
search
verb of
engine
grok?
on the AI on X, and I
Mhm.
asked it. I actually compared it to Google as well, and it's pretty much the same answers. What are the top countries leading the way in climate change? And
Mhm.
India was in the top 10.
Interesting.
India is the number one country with, like, they have the most cattle,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're leading the way in climate change. And therefore, I find that extremely interesting because they
Well,
must be
because
like
that
one of the number one producers of methane, right?
with all those cows, yeah,
All those
wasn't. I
cows.
mean, going back how many episodes when we had Keely on talking about Point Reyes and all the ranchers, wasn't the whole point that they were saying one of their arguments was that all these cows and these dairy cows were bad for the environment because of all the methane they released?
Right. But they're
So
replacing them with the
with Thule elk,
Thule
which
elk.
I'm sure also release methane.
This is a great episode of We Can't Speak. We don't
Yeah,
know how to pronounce
there's
words. Apologies.
um okay, there was one last thing I want to discuss before we hop into this poll. So there's this, I had to look this up because I had never heard this before. It's this endangerment finding that they were talking about, and what an endangerment finding is. It's a 2009 EPA endangerment finding standard. The Lee Zeldin is trying to get rid of this. And I'm trying to think if this is sort of what we saw in Point Reyes, where people bring lawsuits on behalf of the federal government for like the Clean Air and Water Act, and then we the taxpayers end up paying the attorneys lots and lots of money, like especially like that one nonprofit that makes like $25 million just on these lawsuits. This one page primer says, what is it and why does it matter? It says the 2009 endangerment finding was the first step in the Obama Biden administrations and later the Biden Harris administrations overreaching climate agenda. That agenda has imposed trillions of dollars of costs on Americans for a generation. Defenders of this agenda have avoided scrutiny of how it all began. That evasion ends today. In 2007, the Supreme Court of Massachusetts v. EPA ruled that the George W. Bush EPA erred when in 2003 it denied a petition to regulate greenhouse gas emissions from new motor vehicles that the petitioners argued were causing climate change. Massachusetts held that the Clean Air Act's general act-wide definition of air pollutant was broad enough to include carbon monoxide. Massachusetts explicitly did not hold that EPA was required to regulate these emissions from these sources. So then basically what happened was the court sent it back to the EPA, and this is where the agency started to slice out the statute itself passed by Congress and basically slashed it to the point where they can then find there was an issue in the statute.
Okay, what?
This is it. Okay, so basically the problem is that they were able to give the power. This was way back in the day, and I say way back, it was only 2009.
16
That is
years.
kind of, that's, yeah, that's a way back in the day. Where they gave the EPA this like incredible power to look at a statute pick apart the statute that our representatives in Congress passed, they were then able to cut it up and rewrite it the way they wanted so that they can find and regulate based on what they wanted to regulate. Now, this Supreme Court, not a fan of that. They overturned the Chevron deference, which means agencies can't like go in and change statutes. Whatever the statute says, they got to deal with it. So
Okay.
that's what Lee Zeldin is basically doing, is he's taking that away from the EPA. He's taking more power away from the EPA, which I agree with.
Right.
If the statute says something, the agency has to follow what the statute says. And for too many years, the EPA has basically been, how do I say it? They've been running amok on their own and making statutes and regulations as they see fit. So I'm all for it. Anything that can, cut the power of
Extra government.
Of extra government is great. So any final thoughts on Gavin Newsom and his amazing satellites he's going to be shooting into space with federal tax
I
dollars?
feel like we could have titled this episode Gavin Newsom launches a podcast. Gavin Newsom launches a satellite. What will Gavin Newsom launch next? His presidential.
I should have asked for an AI. I should have asked for an AI from Grok of Gavin Newsom in a spacesuit and called him Little Rocket Man or something like that. Because now he's all into launching stuff into space.
Burning out his. Sorry, just go to Rocket Man song.
Rocket Man. Still no guesses on what the art is.
Speaking of,
it's kind of a hint, but not the same artist.
But not, yeah.
Kind of in the same realm of that artist. Same country, or from the same country as that artist. So, all right. Final story of tonight.
I said same age. Are you?
Yes, sort of. I feel like Elton John came out a little bit later after these guys. But yeah, close. 10 years, maybe.
It's another
10
hint.
years younger. It's another hint. All right. Last story of the night. This was a poll that came out showing that 48% of likely voters would consider, not saying it's actually that they're going to do it, would consider voting for a Republican governor in 2026. So this obviously sent shockwaves through the political pundits because of the fact that, well, California is so blue. So why would it even get that close to 50%? So this is from the Sacramento Bee.
Whatever have Democrats done wrong that we would vote against them?
A new poll of 700 likely California voters shows growing dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party and its leadership. The poll was conducted earlier this month via text by David Wolfson, a national pollster and lecturer at Columbia University. Top findings from the poll: 48% of likely California voters say they are now considering voting for a Republican for governor in 2026. 71% believe the governor and the legislative leaders have not addressed California's high cost of living. Wow, you think so? Huh, interesting. 60% oppose free health care for undocumented migrants or immigrants. 73% support fully funding anti-crime Prop 36. The poll was sponsored by Madison McQueen, a Los Angeles-based media firm that, among other things, creates ads for Republican campaigns. Rusty Hicks, chair of the California Democratic Party, shot down the results. Over the next 18 months, California Democrats will connect with the nearly 20 million voters and elect a Democrat as California's next governor.
Comment.
He said.
I have a comment about that. There are approximately 22 million registered voters in the state of California, and he's claiming they're going to connect with 20 million of them. I doubt it. I seriously doubt it.
The new Democratic candidate, whoever it is.
Well, what you just read, the last sentence you just read, when he's like, over the next 18 months, we're going to connect with 20 million voters. There's 22 million voters registered in California. So he's claiming they're pretty much going to connect with every voter in California. That's never happened. Unless they just never connect with me. Somehow we missed that connection. I'm waving a pen around like it has some authority. Do I look smarter with this pen? Does my statement stand out? Put the pen down. I want to calm down.
Sounds like a Bob. No, you look like Bob Dole now.
I just think it's a little ridiculous. I don't think they're going to connect with 20 million voters over the next 18 months.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of voters. That'd be all the voters. And I
Be
don't
all
think
the
you're going to
voters.
connect with all the voters. You had sent the numbers, which was interesting, about Gavin Newsom compared to Alex Padilla and like how many votes he got, right?
Yes, it was very interesting.
Would you like to share those results?
Let me just find what I sent you. I'm sure I have the tab open here, but I'll just go pull up what I sent you. And
Well, while you're looking that up, there was an article in Newsweek. I don't know if we'll have a chance to get to it. I saw this on Reddit because we do the hard research that you guys don't have to do, and you can come here and listen to us talk about. We filter through the muck of places like subreddit to find this. This was in Newsweek. It was Republicans' next target, California, and it was talking about how the shift toward the GOP was 12 points in 2024 compared
that's
to
a lot of
2020.
points.
That's a huge shift in California. And I think this was from Brian Jones. He told Newsweek, "Our mission is clear: break the Democratic supermajority and fix California. As Senate minority leader, that means flipping 4 Senate seats next election. Californians are fed up with one-party rule." That to me does not sound like that many seats. I don't know if they're in competitive districts, but 4 seats to flip the Senate.
Well, he's saying break the
not flip it, to
supermajority.
break the supermajority, not flip it. I apologize. You're right. But to break the supermajority, you can logjam a lot of legislation if you don't have a supermajority in the Senate.
Yeah. And that's one of our biggest problems is that it's like a super majority. To go back to the numbers, in 2022, more people voted for Alex Padilla, U.S. Senate, in both the partial, because there was a partial and a full term position, than they did for Newsom. Newsom got just under 6.5 million votes, and Alex Padilla in the same election got just under 6.6 million for the partial term and over 6.6 million for the full term. And so this was, Newsom's second term. And in the 2022 election, Newsom received about 6.5, well, I just said like just under 6.5 million votes, which was 59.2%. And Brian Dahle received 4.4, a little over 4.4 million, which was 40.8%. Now, yes, that is a big gap, but I think we discussed even like last year or the year before that's actually, those numbers are closer for governor than they have been in a while. Like there is definitely an increase in people voting for a Republican governor. The percentage is going up, the gap is closing. And so that does show that more people are voting red, more people are voting for a Republican governor.
Right.
And because in 2018, 7.7 million people, 61.9% voted for Newsom, while 4.7 million, which is 38.1%, voted for John Cox. So there's a trend. Now, trends don't stick around. We have to fight for these. We're always an election away from losing anything and everything. But there has been a trend of, and we, of course, we saw in the 2024 election, which wasn't our California statewide election, but it's, the presidential election definitely turned a little more red. And now they're talking about 12 points, which is a big number in California. So it's not that far off to think people are fed up. They are fed up with the supermajority and the extreme liberal push of what's going on in California. And I feel like Gavin Newsom's going to start taking credit for the cost of eggs going down soon. Like he's gonna be like, see, we're doing great. We're addressing the cost. Eggs are the cheapest they've been. And somehow that'll be all him. And then we'll find out he's investing $100 million into some egg farm specific for California, or they're going to produce the biggest eggs and something like that. Sure, we'll hear about that soon enough.
I think the biggest lesson to take away from this is you and I have been preaching on this podcast for many years about politics is a slow game of inches, and people get very dismayed and they want people to come in and save California and flip it red like overnight, like, and I've always said, like, I would be happy if in 10 years or maybe less than 10 years at this point, I feel like we're on that trajectory of, like, if we were a purple state, I'd be happy with a purple state at this point, like a competitive state, a
It's very
state that like presidential
possible.
can.
It's very possible 2030 will be purple.
It's very, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of trends of Hispanic voters are trending more Republican. Um, Asian voters. Who's Winky, our favorite character from San Francisco.
She's so cute.
Winky, from Chinatown in San Francisco, in the heart of San Francisco, in Chinatown. A lot of people were voting for Trump. A lot of Asian voters. So it's kind of a game of inches, and we've seen, big leaps and bounds, not just inches. We've seen like big jumps from going to what more than 50% of the counties went red in California, which when you explain that to people, like, yeah, more than 50% of our counties in California are red. Now that they're not the counties with all the voters, with like, Los Angeles and San Diego and all that stuff, but there are gains here in San Diego. The most biggest shift we saw was in the South Bay with Hispanic voters. All of this is good news to break the supermajority and just throw off the shackles of this horribly, monotonous one party state where they get to decide everything, do everything, and get whatever they want. Like Karen Bass just walking up to Sacramento going, well, we have a supermajority and Gavin Newsom's governor, so I'm going to get $2 billion. Like, if you're a purple state and it's an even legislature, you're not walking up to Sacramento and begging for $2 billion and thinking you're going to get it. That's just not what's going to happen. So I think it's all like really good news to see. I'm all for breaking the super majority in California because I think that's how we improve different points of view, trying something. Clearly, what we're doing now is not working in California. This also doesn't mean, I'm sitting here cheerleading for the Republicans, rah, rah. We definitely have our critiques of the Republican Party here in California. It has a new chair, which be interesting to see. But in my mind, any group that's trying to break the supermajority, and the Republicans are sort of the tip of the spear with this, is good in my estimation, because we need to break this supermajority. And this is all good news. If this poll is showing that people might consider voting for a Republican, maybe this is the closest someone gets. Maybe a Chad Bianco gets really, really close, and they go, wow. All of a sudden, a lot of voters in California go, wow, we were that close to having a Republican governor. And if they buoy, if the top of the ticket gets a lot more red votes, that helps the down ticket, which then helps legislatures, city councils, mayors, and stuff like that. So, Goetz Krieger he threw a whole bunch of things out. You have a correct answer in your guess. He said Rolling Stones, Beach Boys, Beatles, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, Pink Floyd, The Who, Grateful Dead, Simon and Garfunkel. He just throwing everything out. He's literally throwing everything out.
There.
I'm speaking of this art right here. What is this art? If you can name it. I still haven't decided like what it's going to be. What's the prize going to be? Here, I'll give you guys a hint. It's like right there. There you go. You can take a look at it. Okay. I mean, the song titles are actually right here in the bottom. It's hard to see, though, I'm sure. Anyway, 700 voters. Is it a big enough sample size out of a state with 20 million voters? Who knows? But either way, this is part of a larger trend, in my opinion, of things are changing and people are getting frustrated with where California is going. And they're kind of going, okay, what are our options here? And they're thinking, maybe I do vote for a Republican. So, any final thoughts on whether or not we're that close to a Republican governor, or is this just good signs that we're moving?
It's possible. I mean, 4 years ago, I think we were both like, yeah, not happening. Like, no, I'm pretty sure we were like that. We were like, cool, not happening.
Yeah. We were like, we applaud anyone who
We
goes out there
literally
and
had that
fights the fight.
conversation for sure.
Yeah.
We went down the names of like who was running, and we were like, thanks, no thanks, not happening. Not to say that we wanted to do some, but we were just looking at our options, and we were like, yeah, this is not the state is not voting this person in. And
Yeah.
so
I think the biggest thing is if you work to make it, if you shock the system by making it closer that, well, it kind of reminds me in a way of what happened in New Jersey in their last gubernatorial election. I think his name was Phil Cicchini or something. It was an Italian name, but he came
of course it
really,
was.
really. Oh yeah, it's New Jersey. That's where I'm from. Hey, how you doing? But he came really close. It was like less than a percentage point as a Republican winning the state of New Jersey. Now I know people are going to be like, "Well, they had Chris Christie. It wasn't that long ago," but New Jersey is a deep blue state. I know Scott Pressler's working on changing that. You know, if that happens, it's the little things that people take into the next election cycle. They read the tea leaves and they're like, hey, we saw more engagement in these areas. We can build on that. If you have a really good showing in 2026 for Republicans and it gets really close, all of a sudden people go, California is not as far gone as we think it is. Maybe it is closer to purple. So
I hope it is, because I really, this morning reading the news, I felt the heaviness, like, you know, all the comments that we get of so glad I left that state. California's lost. California has no hope. All that. Like, I kind of felt that this morning. Not, and it was a fleeting feeling. It's not a permanent feeling, but I just reading the news, I was just like, this is so bad. This is so bad.
yeah, I don't know. I felt that when I was driving home from work the other day. I looked at like the highway and I was like, this highway looks like a third world country. And it's like a historic California highway. I'm like, why is this highway such in like crappy condition? It just looked really bad for a state that, pumps itself up to be the 5th largest economy in the world. You're like,
Right. And it
we
is
can't
a
get
pretty
roads
state.
right.
It is. We know that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah. Just
we'll keep an eye on it. Does it mean there's going to be a Republican governor? Who knows? I don't know. Politics is crazy. Rosie O'Donnell couldn't figure out why Trump won all the swing states. Politics is crazy. All right. Is everyone dying to figure out what the answer is of what this art is behind me? It is The Who's Quadrophenia. That is the album art for, in my estimation, the greatest rock album of all time. I'm just going to say it is the greatest rock album of all time. From end to end, I can listen to it max volume, just from beginning to end. It's an amazing album. I'm also a huge Who fan. So we were talking about this before, that we're both Who fans. So
I'm not going to go out and say it's the best album of all time, but I can't name a better album. I'm just leaving room for first place just in case.
Well, you said you really like Quadrophenia, but you really liked Who's Next.
Yes.
So Who's Next is a really good album as well. Excellent. Lots of, all the hits you know of on CSI and all the intro shows of Bob O'Reilly, Won't Get Fooled Again. They're all on there.
So now everyone who's listening has to tell us if they like The Who or not. Or just, tell us your favorite band or your favorite album, or because now we're a music podcast.
We're just going to review old music.
Bill's a musician, in case you can't tell by his instruments hanging on the wall.
Megadeth, 1988. Somebody said so far. Never been to a Megadeth concert. Not big into metal. Yes, those are my actual instruments. I have played those instruments. This guitar over here has actually traveled the world. It's been to Italy. So, all right. On that note, because we're talking about music.
Now I just picture you like walking through like deserted
streets of Florence,
or like a walkway through like olive trees, just carrying your, but like an emo album cover. I'm sorry. Now we're getting way off. We should probably just end.
Yeah. On that note, we're not going to go down the whole history of me playing guitar since I was 15, but yeah, that's our episode for today. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, review. Thanks for everyone for showing up and being active in the comments. We love seeing everybody active in the comments. I think we figured out the live stream again. We were live on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Twitch. So
Wow.
we're live in a lot of places, and we love seeing all the comments. The chat is lively tonight on YouTube, so we love that. We love people asking questions, putting in their comments. Like the postman said, I saw Led Zeppelin in 1977, Oakland Coliseum, or in Oakland, California, physical graffiti. Last time they played in North America.
What is your favorite Led Zeppelin song, and why is it Cashmere?
Oh, that's not my favorite Led Zeppelin song. I think my favorite Led Zeppelin song has got to be, oh gosh, now it's embarrassing because I can't remember. Now I can't remember the name of it. It's my favorite song and I can't remember it.
It's all right.
Anyway, my dad saw them. He told me a story how he saw them at the Fillmore East back in the 70s. He said that was a really cool concert. Anyway, make sure you like, share, subscribe, review, comment. All that stuff helps with the algorithm. We're live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We've been doing a weekend show also that premieres on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Check that out, and follow us on social media. And the best thing you can do to support the show that is 100% free is share this with somebody else. So with that, we'll see you on the next one. Later.